Welcome in, everybody. It is the South End Zone. As you can see, it looks a little bit different today. I'm Chad. You see Tyler, but we have some guests with us in studio today. We have someone I just met the other day watching the LSU Ole Miss game. Tracy, is it Cowley or Coley?
Cowley.
Okay, Tracy Cowley. I didn't even know how to pronounce your last name. And then, of course, you guys know Jeremiah Campana. He is our resident Ohio State homer who is still kind of like taking the gauze off and like cleaning his wounds from this weekend. But we are going to get right into it. We had an epic weekend. We already previewed or recapped this game earlier, but I'm going to recap this one in a little bit of a different way because I want to hear some of the experience that Tracy had. I want you guys to hear some of the stories that she told about her experience in Tiger Stadium for LSU's epic 29-26 overtime win over Ole Miss. Tracy, like, you got to be there. I didn't get to be there for the 100 Years of Death Valley and all that stuff. And you had some experiences with some really weird Ole Miss fans and a whole bunch of other stuff. And then you had a kind of an eventful Uber ride as well. So let us hear the story. Break it down for us.
Yeah. So tailgating was off the charts. LSU is known for that. And so everyone was pre-gaming and I arrived at the stadium about 5:30. So an hour before, and it was already half full. And if you've been at LSU games, that doesn't happen a lot. Student section was already packed. So the environment was big game for sure. Once the game started, you could tell the crowd was a little bit nervous, but they gave us these wristbands that lit up and they didn't really show it on TV a lot. But if you've been on social media, hopefully you got a chance to see it. It was incredible. It changed from purple to yellow throughout. All the songs matched. Calling Baton Rouge was amazing.
Set It Off was pretty epic too, though. Like that was
they sang they did Neck twice, which was incredible. So it was pretty. The atmosphere was right. The crowd was in it from the get-go. Very loud, very loud. There was great Ole Miss fans, and then there was a redheaded stepchild I posted on Twitter who was running around our section harassing LSU fans. I get it. Fans are going to do that anywhere. But to me, it was like, it was so early in the game. What are you doing? So he even pissed the 12-year-old boy off behind me, who started yelling at him and started insulting him. So that was pretty funny. The dad gave the kid a high five. But the game was awesome. I was right at the purple end zone, which is the south end zone of the stadium. I was on the front row.
Shout out to the south end zone, by the way. Yes, that's
right. Yes. It's across from the student section. So it's the other end zone. But it was very loud and just had an awesome time at the game. Unfortunately, I was supposed to go meet some local guys where Chad was at Don Juan. And so I had to leave the game a little early to get there. If you've ever been to Tiger Stadium and try to get an Uber, there is no Uber. And I can't walk for miles. So I did end up walking about 1.5 miles, found a guy. I apologize for my dogs. They're playing. But took the Uber and missed the ending of the game in the Uber. We listened to the field goal, but then I was getting out the Uber. By the time I got in my car, LSU had already won. So brutal. Brutal. But I was so excited that they won. I really didn't give a shit. Got to Don Juan right then and met Chad, and it was just an awesome vibe. If you've ever watched T-Bob Hebert on Whiskey and Wine, he was in another realm. He was basically having orgasms on the YouTube, so on their channel. So, but it was hilarious. T-Bob was in his own little world, but it was awesome. Whiskey and Wine is great. Matt and T-Bob are great, but that is my story. And of course, where did he catch the game-winning catch? Right in front of you. Right where I was. Now, I do have to say, I probably would have been stampeded by people storming the field. So I didn't want to be in that, I could tell you. It was a 4-foot high little fence that they have there. And I was not about to be climbing over that anyway, but it was an incredible night. I will never forget it, even though I missed the ending of the game. So there you go.
So it's very important, SEC wins are SEC wins, and every one of them is big. And whether it's Alabama or Florida or, Georgia, if they come into Tiger Stadium, but what makes it different about Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss? Why was it so sweet?
Because he's a dick. Come on. Everybody knows he's a freaking penis with a coaching gear on. He is so now he does follow me on X, but I don't know how much longer that's going to happen. But, he just comes across as arrogant. He's very good. Lane Kiffin is very good. He's good at recruiting. He's very good at offenses. But I just feel in big games, he's now 0-5 in big games. And that you start getting a stigma. LSU has a stigma on opening games too now. But you get a stigma, and Brian Kelly is 13-0 under the lights at Death Valley, and you can't underestimate that. He beat Alabama with his big balls and went for the win. So I'm telling you right now, Brian Kelly is ahead of Lane Kiffin and where the programs are. And if I'm an Ole Miss fan, I'm very worried because it's going to be a mass exodus after this year, and we don't know what they're going to look like next year. So he's going to have to dip into the portal to keep building his teams. And sometimes that's not the best way to build. It's a little Band-Aid instead of developing talent and getting these kids bought into the program to fight for the program. You're seeing that now with LSU.
Yeah, I was about to say that's what you saw with Kelly's first couple of years.
Was a machine. That dude, he's going to have to be the Harold Perkins that Harold Perkins was 2 years ago playing Arkansas. So he had 18 tackles. He had a sack and a forced fumble. So he was the SEC Defensive Player of the Week for a reason. But I do feel that LSU's defense is finding its stride under Baker, and the excitement level on the sideline. He was on the sideline with these kids, giving them high fives, jumping in the air. I feel there's something good happening in Baton Rouge, and people better take the team seriously from moving forward.
Well, and they had a ton of recruit prospects in the stadium too for that game, and that is not small.
They were on the field at the end, filming it and posting it on social media. And hey, that may not sway them. Money may sway them more, but I'm telling you right now, that environment with all the superstars for LSU there, Shaq, Odell, Justin Jefferson, you name it. There were over 150 former players there. And then stars like Paul Skeens, Livy Dunn in the stands. That matters. And that kind of atmosphere matters.
Yeah, the vibes were off the chain.
Off the charts. It was top 3 for me in going to games like that.
Yeah, so, I was at the Florida when we knocked them off when Spurrier was there back in '97, and I can imagine it was probably maybe not on that level in terms of underdog overcoming, whatever, but the thing that makes it better about this is that it's this top 10 level matchup where you go into it and the stakes are so high because whoever wins that game their path is set for them to go to the playoffs if they don't stumble. But the one who loses is out.
Basically 17% chance for Ole Miss to make the college football playoffs now, and LSU's at 47. So huge difference right there. They have to basically go unscathed, where LSU at least has one. If they lose at A&M or they lose to Bama, they at least have a hiccup game where they could still get in because they do have this win under their belt against a top 10 team.
Right. And we'll get in a second. We'll get into what's coming up this weekend because that's one that we cannot overlook. But before we do that, we brought him here for a reason. Jeremiah, Oregon in Eugene beats the Buckeyes 32-31 in one of the other great matchups from Saturday. What happened, man?
You tell me. I think we've seen, honestly, I think we've seen the ceiling for Ryan Day. I think that's become apparent. A lot of John Cooper vibes here in Columbus. If you don't know who John Cooper is, he was a coach in the 90s for Ohio State, had massive talent on his roster every single year, but just could not get the job done. Ryan Day's 2-6 now against top 5 teams. And I think that's Ryan Day. I think what you see is what you get. If he loses to Michigan again, This year, I think you'll see calls for his head. I think he's gone. I think Ohio State should start looking now. And if an elite coach makes himself available, I think it's time to can Ryan Day and go after it. I know that sounds harsh, but we cannot go through a decade of having massive talent on this roster and losing big games. It just can't happen.
You telling me LSU is going to have to dig into their pockets and try to keep Brian Kelly?
Probably. Probably.
Brian ain't going nowhere with these classes coming in. No
I don't
way.
think so either.
No
I wouldn't
way.
go anywhere. I sure
No
as hell.
way.
Well, Ohio State has a lot of money. So, who knows? But it was a double whammy for me because that was the weekend of the Columbus Italian Festival. I had literally just got eliminated from the bocce tournament. I was like, okay, well, that sucks. But hey, you know what? I get to watch the full game now. It's 7:00, 30 minutes.
How did you get out of bed on Monday? I mean, that's like brutal.
Brutal. And was it just me or was the first half of that game? I don't know if you guys saw it. It was just a really bizarre start to a football game with just like weird things happening. And then, and thanks, by the way, NCAA for changing that rule a few days later. That's really going to help us out now. It's just a lot of weird stuff going on in that game. But hey, you know what? I think Oregon and USC coming into the Big Ten does make us an overall better conference.
Yeah.
So it's good to see some better in-conference games happening. But again, I think you've seen the ceiling with Ryan Day. I think this is Ryan Day.
You guys are still minus 700. To make the CFP. Well, I mean, cry me a damn river, Ohio State fan. I mean, you guys are always in the mix.
Well, I do want to ask, you guys have a talent, but it just seemed like it didn't seem like they executed. I know that one DB, they literally just kept going at the same kid the entire night.
Denzel Burke.
I cannot remember his name. Yeah, that kid.
Yep.
I cannot remember his name. They took him up and down the field, but also it's like, I don't know. Ohio State has, and I heard this today, Ohio State's benefited from like some of the best quarterbacks of the last 10, 15 years.
Yeah, for sure.
Like,
except the one they let go to LSU.
This is true. Listen, we let one of our own go to Ohio State. So
first of all, let me just say, Tracy, it's not enough to be in the mix. If you're not winning, it doesn't matter how much you're in the mix. That's not the bar here. The bar is winning. The bar is winning. It's not.
I understand.
True,
but it's
and I took a shot at
half the battle.
Yeah, I took a shot at Jeremiah, and we have another Ohio State friend we have a little group chat, Drew, who I took a shot at them a little bit that, you don't always get to play against like corn farmers anymore. Like now you have to actually you got some of these other games. You don't get to just all right, can Ryan Day beat Michigan? Because we're going to beat everybody else because you're playing Purdue and Indiana and Illinois and Minnesota, and it's just not the same. Like this is now you got to go beat Oregon and Ohio State and Washington. If they get their stuff back together, they're a contender as well.
Penn State.
Right, Penn State. But a lot of the time, Penn State somehow Ohio State and Penn State will miss each other, and they only play half of the time or maybe 2/3 of the time. So sometimes they could avoid that landmine, and the only big game would be that Michigan game. I think last year y'all played both, right? You played Penn State earlier on in the year, and then the Michigan game, and you beat Penn State pretty handily. But being in the mix when you have one or two really challenging games, when you have the talent level that Ohio State has compared to the rest of the Big Ten, you have to win the big games, and it is not enough to just be in the mix because you're almost in the mix by default when you have that talent gap. So
and to Tyler's point, we haven't had an elite defense since Luke Fickell left, and he's kind of floundering as a head coach a little bit, which is sad to see. But he was a great defensive coordinator, and since he left, we just cannot fill that position with somebody who can get the job done. Again, with all this talent on the roster.
I just think you guys literally they were against that Georgia team. It was so close. You guys were there. You had a chance. I think giving yourself a chance. And here's how I look at it. There is absolutely no way Michigan's beating y'all this year. 0, 0, 0. When I say zero, they don't have a quarterback, dude. They don't have a quarterback. So they are not winning. So if you look at the rest of the schedule, you guys are going to have a big opportunity. And then do y'all still have the Big Ten championship game?
Yeah, so if all goes well and we do win out,
you're going to get home field.
Rematch Oregon.
Hold on, let me get my little violin out.
That's what I said, Chad. What did I say?
Come on.
What did I say? That was
you're going to get a rematch against Oregon, most likely, right?
That's a preview of the Big Ten championship.
And then guess who wins on a neutral field? So I think here's the deal. These kind of losses, and I've seen it with really good teams, they actually build character within your program. And I know that sounds silly, but they do. This was a road environment that was insane, and you guys lost by 1 point.
Right.
Now, why your quarterback slid, I don't know. That's weird. But I just think that I wouldn't be all doom and gloom if I'm Ohio State. It just, you learn from this, move on, and get better for the playoffs.
Yeah,
I think Jeremiah is saying he's not confident
he's not
that Ryan Day can do that.
He's not confident
because we'll get to the playoffs, and if depending on the road to the CFP, I mean, we'll just face another top 5 opponent, and then Ryan Day will lose to them again. Ryan Day's signature
now that's
win
a different story.
Clemson.
That if y'all lose again, then there you go. But if you keep winning, it's really hard to find a big coach these days. Who are you going to get? Who are you going to pluck away?
Listen, I heard it today. I heard it mentioned,
Kiffin?
Thrown out there. Listen, would you be opposed to Mike Vrabel coming and coach at Ohio State?
I don't think we would be, just because he's beloved around here.
Yeah, I was going to say, not like it's like a thing that's happening, but a hypothetical that was thrown out. I mean,
it's not a bad hypothetical though, actually. Like, Harbaugh.
Harbaugh went home.
Vrabel wouldn't be a bad dude. He gets players to buy in. He got the Tennessee Titans to
play hard.
Right.
And maybe having that chutzpah, added to your team. Ohio State used to have amazing defensive players, and I think you're right. They've gotten a little bit, I wouldn't say totally soft, but they've gotten softer. Okay. In the program. And it's hard, man. You guys spent $20 million this year on NIL? That's the rumor.
Well, yeah, and Ryan Day's a top 5 paid coach in the entire NCAA. We're dropping insane amounts of money here.
Yeah.
2 and 6 is just against top 5 is just not worth that money.
Yeah. I will say this though, the fact that the realignment of the conferences is proving to be so beneficial. Just like the amount of the fact that the Big Ten has as much gas in the mid-season game like that is so new territory.
Right.
Like we're not just pretty much waiting
not
for
November.
Ohio State and Michigan every year, or when Penn State hosts Ohio State and Michigan for a whiteout. Like it's like 2 opportunities maybe. But the fact you get this much gas and USC Penn State turned out. I mean, USC pissed that game away, but that's still a great game that you have week 7 as opposed to we're just literally waiting for the game every year.
It's more SEC like. Let's be real.
Yeah.
More SEC like.
You got.
It matters more.
Maybe we need to reconvene this little quartet later on when there's not as many games to talk about, because I do want to get into this idea of this 70-team NFL type super conference thing that they're trying to build. That is going to be that's where it's already headed. Like you see, between the Big Ten and the SEC, and then maybe you pluck a few from the Big 12 and a few from the ACC, and you've already got the makings of something like that anyway, where you don't even play the South Alabamas and the Mercers and the whatever, all those schools anymore. No more Youngstown State games, Jeremiah. You can't do that anymore.
The Akron Zips.
Yeah.
Ole Miss basically started with a preseason schedule for a month. Okay. I think it hurt them. I think it hurt them. They didn't get smacked in the mouth until Kentucky. And then they were licking their wounds, had to go on the road and playing 7 straight games. It cost them. They didn't get one sack against LSU.
On the flip side of that, we did see Michigan with the weakest schedule in college football win the whole thing last year.
To me, that was an abomination.
Because they knew what plays that the team were running.
Yeah.
So all right. So since we're going to talk about vialations and the NCAA kind of looking the other way and not really doing anything to really
not do anything ever.
Let's talk about this. So I don't know that it would have really that you guys would have actually won had this not happened, but it did. I mean, 5-6 seconds?
Well, that combined with that BS pass interference call, it was just him breaking off the guy who was locking him up.
Right.
It was those two together that did the damage.
The pass interference call to me was massive.
More egregious. Yeah.
More egregious. But I don't understand why Lanning would actually admit that.
We kind of did, but he kind of
Has he admitted it? Has he actually come out and said this is what we're doing?
In his presser, he admitted it.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, so I will say this. He tacitly admitted it. He didn't like outright admit it, but he kind of he winked and nodded.
Please.
No, I know we do, but I'm saying
we do.
If you try to pin him down, on the record or whatever, it's like, well, I didn't say that I did it on purpose. But
it's why they came out and changed it, because
I would never take credit for that. I'd be like, oh, that's crazy. We should keep 11 guys on the field. We should be more disciplined in the end of games. That's what I would have said.
Right.
Yeah.
I would have never been like, oh, we definitely did that on purpose because there's a runoff on the clock and now Ohio State has one snap. I would have never said that in a million years.
Well, apparently he didn't tell Will Howard that they only had one snap, but that's another story for another day.
Dude, I'm throwing out of the back of the end zone.
What was bizarre is 2 plays before that, Will Howard is the only one who knows the clock is running, and the offensive line is just lollygagging up there.
Right.
And then 2 plays later, Will Howard forgets what time it is and runs and slides. I'm like,
I don't know.
I will say,
more time to scramble and move. I don't know.
That is the biggest criticism I would have for Ryan Day, is how he mismanaged his team in those moments. Honestly, that's one of the biggest things we see in coaching failures is the last 2 minutes of games or halves and just having their heads up their asses, and it costs their team. I don't understand it. I don't understand how you paid that much money to be that bonehead.
Yeah, but he can't execute. He can't make the kick that Ohio State should have made against us. He can't.
That's different.
Be in Will Howard's head at the end of the game.
Is one thing.
I agree. But he can't, in that moment, change how Will Howard's going to act. Will Howard should have had the proper coaching ahead of time. This is what we do and don't do.
Yes.
But he didn't do it. I don't know if that's like on coaching or that's on bad execution by the quarterback of the team.
But the coaching is some of it's preparation, but some of it's also just like when you have that timeout on the sideline and you have 10 seconds, 30 seconds with them, whatever, you're like, hey, look, we only got this much time. Get out of bounds or
throw it away.
Just throw it away. Something.
Yeah. Well, Will Howard's not a sophomore. He's a
thing. I even almost bailed him out when I was like, oh, well, Nico ran out of bounds against Arkansas. Then I realized that Will Howard was in the Big 12 championship with Kansas State.
2 years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago. I was just like, wait, oh, no, he's not a freshman. That's on me. So I took that back.
Yeah. So, because I think that was one of the criticisms, right, Tracy, of like Les Miles is like, I was one of my criticisms all the time was like, can y'all just hire me to stand on the sidelines next to him and tell him like, no, don't call a timeout. Do you remember the Alabama game where we called a timeout to stop the clock with 1:20 left and we have the ball like on the 30? And it's like, what are we doing? All we're doing is making it to where they're going to have more time to come back down and score. Sure enough, Bryce Sims drives the length of the field and scores and beats us or ties the game and sends it to overtime, and then they beat us. And then we had the one with the TJ Yeldon play too. Well, anyway, Lane Kiffin has had problems with that too. But what he has also had a problem with that the NCAA doesn't seem to know how to deal with is flopping.
Oh my God.
And these guys just like falling down on the ground.
LSU fans lost their mother-freaking minds in the stadium. I don't know if it came across on TV, but that was some of the loudest part of the night was the boos for this. And they should get booed. They absolutely should get booed. And, his team has flopped more. And I think there was 39 times in 4 games that they were flopping. Yeah. That's insanity.
LeBron James would be proud.
It's even more insane because they're an up-tempo
guys.
Team. They're an up-tempo team. Right.
On offense. And then the Ole Miss fans on X were like, well, why would we do it on offense? And it's like, are you guys dumb? Have you not seen their running back being pulled by Jackson Dart to flop? It's insane. It truly is insane. And that comes like, it's dirty. And, it kind of gives Lane a bad name. It's on him.
I think he'll be good, never great at this point in time.
He will always
be destined to be good, never great.
They are the Aggie of the old SEC, if that makes sense. Aggie, in my opinion, and I hate to say this, I don't know if they'll ever rise to the cream of the crop, and that's Ole Miss. Ole Miss has always been below Georgia, Alabama, LSU. They've been, they're just Florida, they're mid. They're mid. Yeah. Every now and then they'll get a few wins more. They just won 11 games in their program history last year. Think about how long they've been around. Right. To me, I go on what they've done longevity wise and where the program is, instead of wishing, hoping, and praying. And guess what? This year was supposed to be that year, like Ohio State.
They
it's
went
supposed
and
to
got
be
Walter
that year.
Nolan.
This is the year. We have it all back. We spent all this SIP NIL money. Come to the SIP, and we get 2 losses already.
Yeah, it's not even November yet.
Georgia.
It's not even November yet. You've already got 2 L's. Yeah, it's and so like Tyler and I have talked about this. I've always had this thing of Mississippi State, Texas A&M, Arkansas. What they typically represent is they're good enough to like spoil your season, but they're never good enough to have one of their own.
They're the
and I tried to explain this.
Absolutely correct.
I tried to explain this to some friends who were huge Mississippi State fans back when Dak Prescott was there, and they were going on. They were undefeated. They were like
they were number 1 at one point.
They were
number one at one point. And I was like, look, I'm not trying to rain on y'all's parade, but I would not be surprised if y'all end up with 3 losses. Sure enough, they end up with 3 losses.
There was a time in
that's
that
what they do.
Where both Ole Miss and Mississippi State were in the top 4. There was a time in that year's poll where they were both top 4 teams, and neither one of them ended up in the playoffs.
And to correlate it to the Big Ten, so Jeremiah's not left out. These are the same. It's the same way that you get like Iowa State, who's playing really well. I don't ever see them winning a national championship. I mean, there's these mid-tiers. You're exactly right. They could knock off one of the big boys to try to ruin one of their seasons, but they're never going to have that championship level on their own. And I fully believe that. Ole Miss's stadium seats 65,000 people. Okay.
Hey, that's still twice as much as Vanderbilt, and Vanderbilt's still with Alabama's ass. Vanderbilt? You lost to Vanderbilt. I'm sorry, it's a bit. I do it every week, so I got to until they 28,900 some odd fans.
And half of them were for Bama.
And half the stadium's still not built yet. I think they're going to build a hotel eventually. It's going to happen. But,
shoot. So what do we see? Like, what does this look like for the playoffs now, though? So we talked about Ohio State's still in the mix. There. What do you say, Tracy? Minus 700.
Minus 700
to make the playoffs. That's basically like a guarantee. Like that's as betting odds go, that's damn near guaranteed.
Exactly.
Have they given the criteria of what they're looking for with this?
I think it's they kind of have the auto bids now with the top 4, right? The 4 conference champs are in, and I think
they expect them to be an auto bid.
But you cannot shoehorn teams like they kicked Florida State out of there last year. Like I think you're going to have like more tangible criteria to go off because you have more spots to fill.
Sure. Have they talked about what that criteria is?
I don't know what that may be. It's still people in a boardroom saying yes, 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 no.
It's the same as it's always been.
This is the difference, guys. The difference is that you now have conference champions getting those 5 spots. Okay, guaranteed. So if Ohio State wins the big, is it Big 10? I don't know why it's still
Big 18,
Big
29.
But it's big, however many teams. But if when you win that championship, you're automatically in. It's just where you rank in those top 5, and then it's 6 to 12. It's the rest of the 7 that are the ones that are going to be vying for the actual spots. So if I'm an Ohio State fan, I still feel pretty good that you're going to get home field, and you may even get a bye. So
we'll see. Are they taking a group of 5? Did they say?
Yeah. Yes. I think they're going to take the best group of best group of 5.
Highest ranked group of 5 team gets an auto bid.
Most likely Boise State at this point.
Yeah, most likely Boise State or BYU. It could be BYU.
Jeremiah, we've talked about. I know you've had differentiating opinions on what this playoff does for the regular season. And I think so far it's shown how much the regular season does in fact matter, because we've kind of established now that Ohio State, Michigan is not the foregone conclusion of the Big Ten. You actually have to play games throughout the season, and you have to win those games. And now it builds your resume for the playoff. I think that at this point in the season, we can say that this playoff format still adds importance to the regular season, because you can't just, I'm going to slack off and lose 3 games and be in the championship. I'm going to slack off and lose 2, maybe drop a really bad one and still make it. Like, I don't know. I think that right now the format we have still adds credibility and importance throughout the entire regular season.
Absolutely, it does. Look at this weekend with Texas and Georgia. I have thoughts on that game, but as the odds are right now, when I looked this morning, LSU is plus 135 to make the CFP. Ole Miss is plus 190. Georgia's still up there. Texas obviously is up there. So most of the top 10 is having good odds. It's the ones who they see maybe risk losing a game or two, like LSU and Ole Miss losing another one. Their odds become a little bit harder to get in.
This is the little ankle biter here. This is cannoli.
Dogs are barking. Hopefully this weekend.
He's being hopefully not this weekend.
Well, your
dogs.
We are my dogs. I
don't want the underdog Arkansas Razorbacks to be barking this weekend.
But Jeremiah, what is your opinion as it stands right now on the regular season? Now that we've kind of gotten some juice,
I mean, time is going to tell. I do think it takes the juice off of some of these games because the loser of Georgia, Alabama wasn't out where maybe they might have been if there's less teams.
I think it does now because they both have one loss.
But and also that means our season's not just automatically done because we lost Alabama. Like
that's
we
correct.
can still fight
correct.
For it. It's like,
which means the regular season games have a little more juice behind them if you take one loss and you're done.
But because they would lose it all because regardless if you win those games, you're not.
I got this one, Tyler. I got this one, Tyler. Okay, hang on.
Listen. I'll mute myself.
If we're gonna say that the way that you make the regular season matter is by there are 5 games all year that actually matter, then I think that's a poor argument. Because what we're saying is that like all that matters is Ohio State, Michigan, LSU, Alabama, Georgia, Alabama, whatever, these big marquee matchups, and everything else is insignificant because those are the ones that matter, and the rest of it now, Ole Miss versus Texas A&M or something like that doesn't matter now because they've already been eliminated because they lost the game. What this has done is it has broadened the depth to which the regular season matters, because now the regular season matters to like 40 teams who actually still have a legitimate shot at making the playoff, and those regular season games matter. Yes, maybe the Georgia-Alabama outcome doesn't eliminate someone and vault someone else into almost automatic berth in the playoff, but that's
unless they lose to Vandy.
That's one small piece, right? But that's one small piece of this huge puzzle now that now the regular season matters a lot to Iowa State, Boise State, BYU, Texas A&M. Like it matters to a lot more teams on a much deeper level to where now we're going to be watching games every single weekend that have playoff implications. Every single weekend, there are going to be like 5-6 games with playoff implications. And so you can't tell me that that has made the regular season less meaningful. It might make it less meaningful to Ohio State because they were able to go drop one in Oregon, in Eugene, and then they still have a path to the playoff, whereas before that game would have meant more. I don't know that it would have meant more. Like it
did mean a lot as it was.
It still meant a ton. As it is, it still meant a ton. It just means that, like, well, now they've got more meaningful games the rest of the way.
Is still alive. That's like the big thing. It's like your season matters because your season's not dead. Like,
but
that's
you're going to tell me that they didn't care that they lost that game? Like, I don't believe that at all. Do you feel that way? Do you feel like it's okay that we lost? Like, hell no.
I mean, losing always sucks regardless. But again, the weight, especially in rivalry games, you'll see that. I'm telling you, over the years, you'll see that weight lift a little bit. And when we get to the play, we have to give this at least 5 years because I'm predicting that you'll see the bottom 6. Typically, the bottom teams in this playoff get smacked every single year, and you'll start to notice that the bottom half of these teams didn't deserve to be in this playoff anyway.
Have you been paying attention to college football this year, Jeremiah? Do you think that
do you think anybody ranked parity below?
I don't agree with that.
Has any chance of beating anybody in the top 5?
Yes,
I
absolutely.
think absolutely.
You're wrong.
It's already happened.
LSU, Alabama. You don't think they have a chance? You don't think they have a chance in the playoff? Come on now. Come on.
Let's look at what the final rankings were.
Parity, NIL, and the transfer portal have made college football full of parity, and that's the difference. Where it used to be gobsmacked, now they're not going to be gobsmacked as much.
There are no Bo Scarboroughs in college football anymore. That's my comparison of all comparisons.
Give him the take. Give him the take, Tyler.
Bo Scarboroughs in college football anymore.
Tell them what that means, Tyler. Because we got to explain that for the audience.
That was 4th on the depth chart in Alabama. 4th 5-star running back. Wasn't even going to see the field. But you know why? Because Eddie Lacy, TJ Yeldon, we're all on that team, and they got to all play. And guess what? It didn't matter if they all got hurt because Bo Scarborough walks on the field, fucking 6'5", 240, and runs down your throat. You can't stockpile those recruits on your team anymore. You can't because they'll leave.
Depth is going to matter in these games.
Why Nick Saban
start getting injuries. Yeah.
That's the reason why Nick Saban retired, for that very reason.
Yes. I agree.
Cannot keep Mac Jones, Jalen Hurts, and Tua in my locker room at the same time. That cannot exist.
Yeah. So to me, that's the difference. And that's why I promise you, there are going to be upsets in these 6 through 12 who are going to bite these other guys in the ankles like Chad's dogs. And, just it's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome. Now, is every game going to be like that? No. There may be a couple games where the big boys kind of put it on them. But for the most part, there are teams that are going to be 6 through 12 that absolutely deserve to be there. And they're going to fight tooth and nail to show that they could beat the other team, the favorite.
Because you're talking about teams that are going to end up 6 through 12 that are one-loss teams that are like, Georgia could easily become 10.
Let's let Jeremiah say his piece, because I think we've stomped all over him. And
I mean, this is all hypothetical assumptions. Like we'll have to see. Give it 5 years. We'll jump back on this podcast and we'll reassess the situation.
Okay, that's fine.
I give it this year. I say we look at it this year.
This year you'll see the 12 seed die to whoever they play. They will die. Watch.
All right. I will grant you that we need to give it 5 years and see, and we can revisit then. But what I would offer as at least some, I don't know, should we call it circumstantial evidence or some sort of like predictive type of analytics? Look at what has happened already this season, where you have had a Vanderbilt knock off an Alabama who was number 1 in the country at the time. You have had USC with 2 losses take Penn State to the brink, take them to overtime, and Penn State had to like claw their way back into that game. Like, I think this is to the point of, with NIL and the transfer portal, not being able to hold these guys hostage like Nick Saban was doing, like some other coaches around the country were doing for so long, not having that at your disposal to keep this huge disparity in talent level between the big boys and those lesser teams. The 1 through 12 is not the gulf that it used to be. And really, like, you take 1 through 4, and now you got those 5 through 12 matchups. You telling me that the 12 seed? Let's pull up. I'm going to just go to the old ESPN college playoff predictor thing here, if it'll let me. Did I? Oh shoot! All right, my laptop just like broke its connection with the StreamYard. So give me just a second, and I'll get it back in here. But if somebody else wants to pull up like who the teams are, I'm just looking at some of these. Like, even this weekend, we've got LSU at number 8. You're telling me like LSU at number 8 against what would they be facing? A number 7 Alabama? Like, there's no chance there. Or number 11 Tennessee.
Penn State. They had LSU playing Penn State in the first.
Okay, yeah.
So the last time I looked at it.
That's definitely
Are
a
you
winnable
crazy?
game for
There's
LSU.
Absolutely. That's like a 50-50 game.
That game would be unbelievable.
There's going to be so many coin flips in those
I'm just excited for the
games that are at the home sites. And I think the home site thing is going to make it insanely epic. Like that, the fact that
they should keep that through the whole playoffs.
I wish they could. I wish they could do that, like literally up until the championship. I know the bowls and the money and the and the Rose Bowl being whatever, which is ridiculous
because nobody cares what the names of these bowls games are anymore.
Right. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Like, dude, could you, like we've talked about before, could you imagine LSU having to go up to Happy Valley in a night game, or vice versa
in December? Yeah, right. That would be awesome.
Yeah. That would be unbelievable. Or Penn State coming down to Death Valley. Just like any of that is what I think is going to be so great about this playoff. So but I do agree to give it time.
Here we are. Yes, I agree too. But I'm saying, like, all right. So what we're saying is that, so let's say these are the top 4. Well, it wouldn't be Penn State. It would be Miami. Or it wouldn't be Oregon and Ohio State. So it'd be Texas, and then let's say Oregon, then Miami, and then you would go to
Notre Dame.
Can't be Notre Dame. It can't be Notre Dame because they don't get that. So it would probably be Boise State or maybe Iowa State. from the Big 12. So you'd have that would be your top 4, and then your other teams, like here's your top 12 right here. You're saying that like these teams now, Indiana, I'll grant you, Indiana might get their ass kicked because I don't know how good they actually are. They're undefeated, but I don't know what it means. I don't think they're good. Are you telling me like Georgia, Notre Dame, or a Notre Dame, Boise State, or somebody like that?
That's based on their percentage of getting there.
And this is percentage of getting there. This isn't the actual rankings.
Polls.
Right.
Right.
This is the guru of whatever this internet thing is.
Yeah, so let's take their hypothetical bracket here because we'll do this. So like, all right, so we're gonna beat Arkansas, beat A&M, and beat Alabama. So that's it. And then we're not gonna win the conference championship game. I'm just gonna assume that. I'm gonna be optimistic but not crazy. So we get a greater than 99% chance. Here's our bracket. We're gonna have a hypothetical bracket. All right. So Penn State, Georgia. Who destroys who in that game? Oregon, Washington State. I don't know, like, how good is Washington State? And this is like their randomization FPI BS. This isn't even that great of it. But Notre Dame, Boise State, I think Ashton Janty and Boise State could give them hell. LSU, Tennessee, that's not going to be a blowout. Like these first 4 games, you might have one that's this, and it would be this Oregon, Washington State one, which I don't know why it came up with that. But this is what I'm saying. Like and we haven't even seen what the actual matchups are going to be. Right now, all we're going off of is like this FPI percentage BS where ESPN's trying to predict who might get there based on all these metrics. And when
as we've seen, the committee will do what they want.
Right. The committee's going to do what they want.
Their TV show, Jeremiah.
The TV show is going to be a good TV show, Jeremiah. That's right.
Jeremiah and all into the TV show. We both are.
Ratings above all things. That's where this thing ends up. So moving on, this weekend, week 8, I think I've looked at the matchups. There are no good top 25 matchups outside of the SEC. And it starts, Tracy, with our Tigers traveling to Fayetteville. This is somehow we seem to always be in a 1-score rock fight with these bastards.
Because we're their Super Bowl. Yes,
we are their Super Bowl, and we have the most dangerous trophy in the history of trophies. I don't know who decided, like, what's a great idea is let's all hold this 8-foot tall big brass blade over our heads. This thing is like this thick, but it's like 8 feet tall. So it's like this giant metal blade. Isn't it
copper or something like that? It's ridiculously heavy.
If that thing falls down, it's going to kill somebody.
Yeah.
If somebody drops it, it goes, we talked about how like the goalpost thing is dangerous because it can hurt somebody really bad. That boot is dangerous as hell. But anyway, we still want to win it. We still want to keep it. But I don't know that we want to win it and keep it as much as they do. Because
the problem is it's their Super Bowl. It's their national championship trophy. My thing is looking at their quarterback. He has a total QBR right now of 59. Okay. So what Arkansas loves to do is run the damn ball. Okay. He can run. Their running back has scored 10 touchdowns. The key for LSU is Whit Weeks, like I said, has to be a machine again, tackling machine again. They're going to try to run the ball down LSU's throat. Okay. They're going to try to keep LSU's offense off the field. Points per game, they're pretty even. Arkansas is averaging 33, LSU 34. But the Hogs have given up a lot of yards in sacks. So if LSU could get to their quarterback, they've given up 95 yards in sacks this year already. LSU only 24. So for me, the difference in the game has to be LSU stopping the run. If LSU does that, I think LSU comes away with a win. Garrett Nussmeier has got to protect the ball. He does have 6 interceptions so far this year. He's got to protect the ball, be smart with it, live another down, stop throwing all the way downfield. We don't need to see that again. Take your check downs.
And run the ball.
Needed to maintain and run the ball. That's one thing I was complaining about at the game was that's great. We didn't give up a sack to Ole Miss's sack machine, but you have an offensive line that's so great, but they can't push blockers away to open running lanes against better teams.
Well, I'm just talking about
Get your
Garrett.
shit together.
I'm talking about Garrett needs to when the
yes, if the field is open, run. Like
they're running like man.
Would do.
They're running man over coverage. You got 2 deep safeties and you're running like these deep square ends and everything. And then the middle of the field just opens up.
Yeah.
Just run the balls. Don't throw into the double coverage. Run the ball and make them make those safeties start cheating up a little bit. Make those linebackers not be able to drop back into coverage.
Know what you're gonna do. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but the other thing I think too is Braden Swinson and Savion Jones and whoever else maybe may rotate in, JVR Suggs and whatnot. Those guys on the edge. The important thing is, if you remember, like the way we would defend Johnny Manziel,
perimeter, maintain perimeter,
maintain the pocket, make him stay in the pocket and collapse the pocket around him.
Yes.
Don't get too far upfield and then give him running lanes underneath and do that little slow man rush where you force him to throw the ball and beat you. Because Taylor Green is good, but it's not as a thrower. He's better than say Lenora Sellers at South Carolina, but he's not Jaden Daniels or anything like that, or Nico Iamaleava.
He has 5 throwing touchdowns and 5 interceptions on the year.
Right.
So they're a running football team when it comes to stacking up their touchdowns for the year. And again, you're right. They have to maintain discipline on the edge to make sure that they could get to him.
For sure. So Tyler, it's your turn, man.
Oh boy.
The Dogs go to Austin. How you
I do have to preface and help Tyler here for just 1 second. Texas, their only real game so far this year was Michigan, and Michigan ain't looking like Michigan. Okay. So this is Texas's first real test to me.
And luckily we have a common opponent to look at. We both have played the Mississippi State Bulldogs. And I was just like, this is the #1 team in the country. You have Arch Manning. You have, Isaiah Bond, who diced us up and down the field when he played for Alabama last year. That tight end Gunnar Helm is a dude. Yeah, but if you look at the drive chart between Texas and Mississippi State, it's kind of interesting. Like, that game was close at halftime. Texas fumbled the ball twice.
It was 14-6 right before the end of the third quarter.
Punts. They forced fumbles. They forced turnovers on downs. It was more of the fact that, like, they got those extra possessions and then I don't know if they just don't have the talent to be able to continuously capitalize on said mistakes by Texas. I'm hoping that we can do that. We should be able to do that. It was so far, Alabama was not being able to tackle. It was not being able to, catch the football. These are 2 basic things in how you win a football game. We couldn't do either of those, and that's how you go down 28-0 before you can know what's even going on. I think that, honestly, this Texas game is not as scary as people are making it out to be. I think it's going to be a close game, but it's a matter of we have not gotten the quarterback much at all this year in any of our games, and that's very non-characteristic of the teams that we've had previously. With the championship teams that we had, it was all about defense. We were eating quarterbacks' lunch on multiple plays. We were stopping the run up front, and it just sounds like it's been, the opposing running backs are getting into second level, and we're making it very easy for them. We're also giving opposing quarterbacks time. Archie Manning has legs. He has a Manning, but he's got Cooper Manning's blood, so he at least can move a little bit.
Right. And his grandfather could run a little bit too. He was the Saints quarterback, and if he had had a little bit of help, he might have been a legit Super Bowl contender year in, year out. But the Saints were terrible, and by the time he moved on to the Oilers, he was broken and beaten down. So
I do have a question for Tyler, because I'm just going to be very blunt. I am not as impressed with Beck at all. I was never impressed last year. I think the team kind of was so good around him that it made him look better, but he throws some awful interceptions. And the one against Alabama really cost you guys. It was bad. So I'm very afraid for him against that Texas defense. And to me, that's going to be the key to the game. If he turns it over, I don't know if Georgia has much of a chance.
Yeah, I'll tell you what he does. He snaps the ball, and then he looks at the receiver, and then he looks at the receiver, and then he looks at them some more, and he doesn't see the linebacker underneath and just a safety over top. Oh, the safety's over there. That's fine. I'm going to throw it and not see the linebacker that's clearly underneath, and then throw a pick. That's how he does that. And it's been this kind of weird bell curve for him, because Chad and I were talking the beginning of last year, he was check down Charlie. He was Mr. Timid. And then he got more into a rhythm, and he did have more weapons. But we brought in guys. We brought in guys from the portal. We have replenished the offense around him.
But he got more aggressive. He got more aggressive throughout the year, last year.
I mean, we also you can't deny the fact that we did have Lad McConkey and Brock Bowers on our team. That was the bulk of our passing offense. Like, we'll say that Arian Smith still can't catch the ball. Didn't last year. He is the fastest guy in the field, but if you can't catch the ball, what more can you do with it? But it's Beck's decision making, and it's literally staring at receivers. I never really understood the Heisman hype that he had coming in, other than he was the quarterback for Georgia. That's me personally. If you're a quarterback for a good team and you play in the SEC, you're going to at least get some Heisman buzz preseason. That's just Jackson Dart had it, Jalen Monroe had it, Carson Beck, all those guys were kind of like talked about. But
same thing with Ohio State and Michigan. Like you just got it's just like you don't have to be Kyle McCord, JJ McCarthy. You get run anyway. Like JJ McCarthy had 80 yards passing in one game, and they were still talking about him for the Heisman. I'm like, how?
Yeah.
Based on what? Based on Blake Corum?
Right.
And
literally.
LeVar Edwards. What's his name? Donovan Edwards. I said LeVar Edwards. No,
but it's Beck threw the ball like almost 50 times last game, so we've shown that he can make throws. He did throw a couple interceptions. It's weird. He threw interceptions, but still threw for 460 yards. So it's making the right throws at the right time, not staring at the receiver, and the receivers have to catch the ball. I honestly think we had like 6 or 7 drops in an Alabama game that could have completely changed the way that game looked for us. Like, they gave us open looks, and we just didn't hit them. And
to Tracy's point, though, like those you can't do that against Texas.
We cannot.
Even if you throw for 460 yards, if you throw 2-3 picks,
right,
you're probably done.
It's it.
You're throwing for 460 coming from behind by 2 touchdowns.
Did you know his completion percentage away from his home stadium is only 56%?
I'm shocked it's that less.
That's scary to me. I want Georgia so bad in this game, but that's his stats scare me more than anything. And then just like, how did Kirby's defense get so depleted? Like, I get y'all are losing talent. Maybe it's finally catching up. The portal, the NFL, everything is catching up maybe to Georgia, and that's going to happen. But it's just Texas is a machine.
We lost 30 guys to the portal, only brought in like 10.
Yeah,
we were fine with you can see whatever. I mean, one of our starters is one of Kentucky's best tacklers right now. One of the guys who did start for us. Like, it's and one of our 2 of our DBs are playing in the Big Ten right now and starting. So we did bring back a lot of talent, but yes, it's the NFL, it's the portal, and it's just we literally couldn't tackle. I don't know what it's not game planning. It was, but it's Kirby Smart cannot go out there and make them tackle. They literally were just arm tackling and we're not wrapping. So it's the fundamentals and getting Beck comfortable early, and we have to keep him comfortable, and we have to go to Etienne, and we have to go to Robinson, and we have to go to Nate Frazier. We've always had a stable running backs, and we just have to mix up our looks, and we cannot let Texas.
I think screens could help.
Yes, because we don't do that enough.
That's an extension of the run game.
Right.
Those are typically simple. Now he's got to pay attention to where, if there's a blitz or something coming, you don't want to have that blown up and tipped, and then you get an interception.
We just can't do anything too much.
Yeah.
We just can't get too vanilla. We can do screens, but sometimes we do the whole time, and it's the Mike Bobo off. It's the Mike Bobo offense of just you just kind of keep going to something for whatever reason that day. I miss Todd Monken so much. I really do.
Yeah.
But it's just our offense gets very vanilla at times. I think it's about getting back comfortable early and mixing up looks. And then we just have to hold on defense and knowing where Isaiah Bond is at all times, and we can't get beat up front. And I think trying to do our best to keep Manning off balance is what we're going to have.
So is it Manning's playing, not yours?
I believe so. He played last game. I don't know.
Did he get hurt again?
No, I think yours is starting.
Yours is starting. Okay. Well, either way, they're both 1A, 1B. They're both good. But it's regardless, it doesn't change. You got to get to the quarterback, or we will not win this game.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm nervous. The roadmap to how we can do it is there. We just have to take advantage and execute.
You got to execute.
Yeah. It all come down to execution for us. That's why we went down 28-0.
You almost have to play the perfect game.
We do.
Yeah. From an unbiased non-SEC perspective, how do you see this game? Or have you
Well,
really
being that Tyler is the only Georgia fan I've talked with personally, Texas has the most annoying fan base, so I'm pulling for Georgia in this one. Let's go Dogs.
No, but, I mean, pulling for them is one thing. I'm saying, like, what's your gut?
I don't know. I
What's your
think
gut feel
Tracy's
on it?
right. I think we're going to see who Texas really is in this game. Georgia, I think, has the better coach. I think Georgia pulls this one out. I really do.
Okay. All right. So what do we think about Alabama going into Neyland Stadium? I have to, I catch myself like just thinking
They're a
no,
3-point
Alabama's going to
favorite.
find a way. Yeah.
They're on the road.
On the road. Yeah.
After what we just witnessed the last 2 weeks of Alabama football.
Showing much right now, though.
So I think I'm catching myself with the same thing the odds makers seem to be catching themselves with, which is like, we just continue to fall back into this rut of believing that it's the same Alabama that it has been, and it's not. It's not. Like, there's a part of me that
Tennessee is always fool's gold. I keep telling y'all.
Yes, they are. They are.
They are not. But I think it's the parity across college football.
Mm-hmm.
It's across everything. It's every team has had losses in the portal. And they've had to get guys, and just because you get a guy doesn't mean he's going to fit the system and play the way you need to.
Very true.
And we've seen it. Look at A&M. A&M had the #1 recruiting class, and they were tooting their horns everywhere. I live in Texas, and I had to hear it.
That's what they do.
What did that get them? Nothing.
It's funny that you say that, Tracy, because I was actually, Tyler and I, we were talking about it earlier this week after the South Carolina almost loss. I feel like Alabama is becoming Texas A&M, where, like, because I was with some Alabama fans last week. I do some work over in Alabama, and so, like, this is like homers. Like, these people live right around Mobile and everything.
They're
like
spoiled, damn rotten, and I hope they rot in hell.
Coming back down to earth, man.
Listen to what they were saying, though. This is what was so crazy, because they started to sound like Cowboys fans and A&M fans, where, like, they still think, they're like, well, you play somebody 60 times, you're bound to lose one of them. Like, to Vanderbilt?
Yikes.
Like,
Nick Saban allowed 13 points in 4 years. Okay. 13 total points.
It wasn't just that they lost to Vanderbilt.
And they gave up 40.
Yeah, I could understand if, like, Vandy ran a kickoff back for a touchdown. They had a fumble. It was
They got dominated.
They got dominated.
They got ran up and down the field.
They needed a stop in the fourth quarter. They couldn't get a stop. Vandy's running for like 6 yards a carry when they've got the line stacked because they know they have to stop the run. They still can't stop the run. So
can Tennessee beat them? I think Tennessee can absolutely beat them. But Nico's been, I think the pressure's finally getting to this kid, These big games, my God, the pressure. He's still a very young quarterback. With how many starts does he have? Maybe 6?
5, 6. Yeah, well, if you include the bowl games, 6 or 7 now.
Bowl game starts are nothing at this point.
The quarterback edge is definitely Alabama, but Milrow's been throwing interceptions like Oprah. You get an interception. You get an interception. I mean, it's crazy he was in the Heisman talks. No way. It
was never him.
He may get to New York if they went out, but I don't see that happening.
Well, and Dylan Sampson is the guy to watch here, because if Tennessee can run the ball the way that Vanderbilt ran the ball, because it is similar. Like, I have my concerns about LSU with Alabama because we don't have that RPO. That if we had Jaden Daniels this year, I'd be like, oh yeah, we're gonna smoke Alabama this year.
Yes.
But this year it's a little bit more. Nussmeier's more of a statue. He can move around in the pocket a little bit, but he doesn't look to run. He's not really a threat. He's never pulled the RPO. Like, it's always every zone read he's giving it every time. Doesn't matter what the end does. He's still giving it. And so Nico Iamaleava is different. Like, he can actually, similar to what Diego Pavia did with Vanderbilt's running game. Now, I know they were running like this inverted wishbone and all these weird sets and everything. It was like Army and Georgia Tech from 10 years ago mixed together or something. But they were able to run the ball effectively. And I think with Dylan Sampson and Nico Iamaleava, like, being able to do that zone read game and keep Alabama's linebackers and safeties guessing all the time, I think there's going to be some run lanes, and that's the key for them. And then you take a little bit of that pressure off of Nico to where he doesn't have to throw the ball downfield. But I also think this is probably one of those games where a big prime matchup like this in Neyland Stadium, even as young as he is, it's going to be his 8th start. If you include the bowl game from last year. So I think he might actually like step into this moment and just like kind of get like that killer's mentality instead of like, whereas last week, I think you probably felt more pressure. I think a game like this, I would tend to think like the pressure's on Alabama.
It's all on Alabama. 1,000%.
So you kind of feel like, no, we're going to be a giant killer today. Let's go get them.
I think
and whereas last week, I think he was trying to not blow a game against Florida in a big matchup. And so it kind of, I think that maybe caved in. And then the same thing with Arkansas. That Arkansas game, I think he didn't realize what was going to happen when you go into Fayetteville at night and you have to play in that kind of environment with a team like that. That is, they're giant killers. They're hunting after you. And I think that, I don't know. I have a feeling his perspective on this is going to be a little different. Jeremiah, what's your take on Alabama, Tennessee, or do you care?
Well, you're right. Alabama's not the same team. That much is painfully obvious. But again, Tennessee's fugazi. Alabama takes the win.
Okay.
I think if you account for Ryan Williams, I think Tennessee takes care of business. I think that South Carolina should have won that game. They made Lenora Stellar is good, not good. I think he is. I think he's a really solid quarterback. He looked good against them. I think literally you account for Ryan Williams because we didn't. And I think you take care of Alabama because that's Milrose's like emergency release valve. I'm gonna just throw it up down the sideline. I'm gonna look amazing. I'm gonna throw it 80 yards and he's just gonna be there. I don't care what, you know what I mean? Like, so if you take that out of the game, I think you take care of Alabama. Because Jam Miller is like a fairly solid running back, but like he is not Eddie Lacy. He is not Derrick Henry. He is not Mark Ingram. He is not TJ Yeldon. He is mortal.
He's fast.
That is the premise of the season, is that Alabama has come back to earth. They are a college football team like the rest of us, and they can lose and they can win and they can do all those other things. And guess what? That's life.
No one fears them
anymore. To the real world.
That's it.
When they're across the field, the players on the other side don't go, "Oh my God, that's Nick Saban in Alabama." They don't do that anymore. Well, yes, dear God, Kirby has nightmares about Alabama.
Continence has returned to college football. No one is pissing down their leg when they look across the sidelines at Alabama anymore. It's everyone is able to keep it in their bladder, and it's all good. So speaking of that game with Alabama last week, South Carolina travels to Norman.
I think they win.
I think so too.
I think
Oklahoma is poor Oklahoma.
Terrible. Not good.
Well, they don't have any wide receivers. It's like, and then they have a freshman quarterback against those D ends. Oh my God.
Michael Hawkins did not. He was not getting it done. And I don't know if they go back
for them because it's just almost a wasted season.
Yeah. Do you think they go back to Arnold, or do you think they stick with the?
I don't think it matters.
Yeah, who are you going to throw the ball to?
I don't think it matters. True. I think you're back.
They were down to like their 6th and 7th receivers last week or something.
Their top 5 receivers were out of the game. You're not winning in college football.
Nope, they're not good. South Carolina W. That's wrap that up.
If they win, it's going to be by defense. It's going to have to be their defense scoring.
I think 4 happens right here.
So what we talked about earlier was Texas got a game from Mississippi State for about 3 quarters. Georgia got a game from Mississippi State for at least 3 quarters.
Their quarterback is not bad.
Call me a hater, but I still think the Cowbells are going to be annoying as hell. Did you hear? I saw this online. Texas A&M fans have been buying Cowbells to do to Mississippi State what they do to other teams.
I feel like
but I still think it's a big home game, and it's a way they have nothing to lose. If I'm on that team, I'm like, I want to wreck some balls. Let's throw wrenches into all of this.
I take Mississippi State.
You really do? Gosh,
I think
Aggie defense is really
A&M is and I'm happy to be wrong, but Chad and I have this thing. A&M is the perfect regression to the mean team. Even no matter how good they've been doing so far, they beat Mizzou by 40. Mizzou doesn't seem to be that good. Oh, well. They lose to Notre Dame earlier. Notre Dame lost to NIU. So what are they? We don't know. But what we do know is that the preseason national champion Texas A&M Aggies will always be Texas 8-4. They will revert to the mean no matter what. Mississippi State has nothing to lose. You are correct. They lost their coach a few years ago. RIP Mike Leach. That Van Buren kid, not a bad quarterback. Mississippi State defense, not terrible. I think that they sneak up and bite Texas A&M when they're not looking.
Eesh.
So to Tyler's point, I want to bring, because this is the thing. So everybody saw, we have this very recent memory of what happened against Georgia this past weekend, that it was like, what the hell's going on? Why is Georgia playing with their food like this? Georgia's just messing around with But I'm going to bring up the scoring summary for the Texas Mississippi State game. Here it is, third quarter, last play of the third quarter. Arch Manning gets a 1-yard touchdown run to make it 21-6. They were in a 1-score game with Mississippi State up until like the very end of the third quarter. So like I actually think like Mississippi State is like this sneaky little sleeper team that you better be careful, because they will jump up and grab you. If they had been able to, maybe they're a couple of guys away from being able to do it, but I think this is one of those perfect opportunities for Texas A&M to, like Tyler said, the regression of the mean comes from Texas A&M has this opinion of themselves that precedes their actual accomplishments.
I live in Texas. I have to deal with it all the time.
I know.
Print the cups, baby. Print the cups.
It's
I don't know if Jeremiah knows the Aggies, what they do. So the 7 overtime game, they beat LSU 74-72, which was obscene. Now they changed the rules because of that game.
Yeah, and we won that game 5 times before they won it. So
that's true. That's actually true. But they printed cups, okay, for that. Not a national championship, which is what normal teams would do.
Right.
Okay? They actually made Jimbo Fisher a national championship trophy. He got on campus.
Wow.
Okay, so this is what we're dealing with here, where they after this Mizzou win, they're printing cups, baby. They are just they're thinking they're in a CFP. So, but they always seem to stub their toe elsewhere and come back to earth, with what they do. But that's what they do at Texas A&M is they print cups, baby. Regular season wins.
Woo! Listen, I'm taking
that's a
Mississippi State money line. Book it. I'm telling you.
Look,
and they show you their power rings. They show you their class rings everywhere. Like it's superhero rings. It's like, I got a ring.
Captain
and
Planet.
They show them everywhere. Yeah, they're class rings. Do y'all wear class rings?
No.
Okay.
I think I wore mine in high school. Because we got
they wear theirs all the time.
I wore my high school class ring while I was in high school, while I was a senior in high school, and then that was it. After that, I put that thing in a bag and put it away somewhere.
It's a thing.
Why would I wear that? But yes, they do.
Thing.
Yeah, they definitely. It's a big cult thing too. It's a big deal. But yes, they are champions and heroes, and in some ways gods in their own minds. It's very wild, very crazy. But yeah, they will. There's this thing about celebrating every victory because they don't always come. It's kind of like that old military thing. Like, you need to sleep, eat, piss, and shit whenever you can, because you never know when you're going to have an opportunity to do it again. Well, Texas A&M just says, listen, we're going to print cups when we beat Missouri or when we win a 7 overtime game against a team that we've never beaten since we joined the SEC, because we might not ever win anything else important again. So by golly, we're going to print these cups because, man, it would suck if next year we were 4-9 and we didn't have these cups printed. So yes, this is the deal. Now, another big matchup in the SEC, go into the swamp, the Kentucky Wildcats.
They're 1.5 point favorite on the road. Yeah, I think Florida wins. That's just me.
That's the swamp. Yeah.
I think Florida wins. I think
Graham Burks is out. He's out for the season now. So.
Yeah.
DJ Lagway
kid is not bad. That Lagway
kid is not bad. Kentucky's defense is really, really good. But I think Florida's going to lean heavily to get him out of the pocket and try to run him and set up the run game.
That Kentucky front seven is shockingly good. That
very good.
The state. I think Carson Beck still has nightmares and the number 0. I don't know the kid's name, but he is a mountain. They just move him all over the front, and they put him in different spots. And Carson Beck's just staring at him when he has the ball. But I'm telling you, I think it's going to be a close one. I would lean Florida because of the home field advantage, but at the same time,
that's the only reason.
I say low scoring affair for sure because Kentucky's defense is legit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and there's enough offensive inefficiencies and problems on both sides that a low-scoring game seems to be in the making. So I think this is another sneaky one. This is where we're either going to see that like Hugh Freeze and Peyton Thorne and this Auburn offense can actually do something. Right, but either they're going to show that they can do something, they're going to expose Missouri for what has been an ugly, like they got destroyed by Texas A&M a couple of weeks ago. They almost lost to Vandy in overtime, which now that doesn't look quite as bad as it did at the time. But then they get a get right game against UMass this weekend. Doesn't really mean anything, but I don't know. At least they maybe got some things right.
I don't understand what's going on with their offense.
I don't either. Right.
You still got Brady Cook and Luther Burden. What are you doing with him? He's a beast, and it's like they're not utilizing him. I don't know what's going on.
That didn't change. You said your quarterback.
I'm not a Hugh Freeze fan, but I think Mizzou gets it done at home. I think the home field advantage and Hugh Freeze. Let's see if we get another crazy quote out of that guy this week. He's kind of. I don't know if Jeremiah follows the SEC that much, but Hugh Freeze has said some things this year that are just like head scratchers.
Well, he doesn't know who he's texting, so he might not be sure which phone he's using when he's talking, so he has to get his story straight. All right, so I want to finish things up on one last note. If you had to pick one surprise team who you think is going to make the playoff at the end of the year, and one surprise team that you think is not going to make the playoff at the end of the year, who would it be?
I don't think Alabama's in.
Out of the SEC or overall?
I think Alabama's out. I think Alabama loses 2 more games.
Alabama's out.
Team that's in.
Who would be in? Who's your surprise in team, Tracy?
I'd have to look and see. Because I think mine would come from the the group of 5. That team, I think there's a fight there to get that spot, and I would need to look and see who that is. I think what's crazy is you have Army and you have Navy right now undefeated. My son's in the Navy.
Every week, dude.
There you go.
Listen, Army Navy could have playoff implications.
Yes, could you imagine?
Championship, and then dude, that's going to be.
Jeremiah said the regular season didn't matter.
It's all about the troops, baby. It's all about the troops. But, dude, surprise in or out? I mean, Alabama, but I feel like Alabama would be that surprising because they're on this downhill who knows what.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my God. They were predicted to be in there by everybody.
I'm saying, like, what I'm saying is a surprise. Like, somebody that, knowing what you know right now, it would surprise you that they don't make it in. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, something like that. Like you said, like, I don't think Georgia makes it in, or I don't think Oregon makes it in, or something like that. And I'm not saying those because that's pretty unlikely. But all right, so Tyler, you got any ideas? And if you plead the fifth, that's fine too.
I'm just trying to think. Like, I feel like things are trending in like a semi-predictable fashion in a way. I know, like, you still have to fill out those bottom couple spots. I mean, maybe Penn State could find themselves out of there if Ohio State and Oregon keep the way they're going, and you just put them both in the playoff, and you only have 2 Big Ten teams. I could see that being a possibility.
But Penn State doesn't play. They don't play Michigan. They don't play Ohio State.
Right, but they're top 5 right now. I mean, if they keep winning, they could end up with a good Big Ten record and be in the Big Ten championship.
I don't see where they're going to have a hiccup. They don't have a very difficult schedule, and they got around USC, so that was one of them. A hurdle for them.
One of the landmines. They do have the Big Ten championship though, so if you lose one and then get to that game and then lose that game, then
that may eliminate them. The later the loss, the worse it is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to be interested to see how the playoff committee sees the conference championship game losses though? Because
see, that's really rough, man.
Are they going to give you some deference
Like,
for
I'd almost
well, at
want to
least you
forego.
got there? Yeah, at least you got to that game instead of giving
A
the
team that
automatic
didn't
pass
play
to a
that
team that didn't
weekend.
even play that weekend. That would be kind of BS to have two lost teams and one of them didn't play that weekend. The other one, their
But then
second
how
lost
do you get
team
Notre
in that
Dame
game.
in there?
Right. No, for sure.
Notre Dame's got to win out and win out decisively. They have to look amazing in their games, and they haven't. That loss is going to scream on the paper when they're reviewing who gets in and who doesn't. Plus, they don't have a conference championship.
I think they might lose this weekend. I think Georgia Tech might actually be able to knock them off. These two teams are on my list. So Notre Dame and Clemson are my two teams where I'm like, I think either one of those two teams doesn't make the playoff. Doesn't make the playoff.
Clemson is playing really well, right? They've got their shit together.
They are, and they have, but there's still some.
Who's going to beat them? Miami, and that's it.
Yeah,
I mean,
Louisville this weekend. I think could beat them. Cade Club, they're playing on the road. Cade Klubnik is good, but he's been playing better. But he's also, I saw him make some mistakes this weekend. They just happened to get away with because the competition was not great. But and the team that I think
the Big Ten with Jeremiah, who do you feel is kind of Iowa State's kind of surprising?
Are they still in the Big 12?
No, they're in the Big 12.
Iowa?
They're in the Big 12.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Kirk Ferentz is still coaching Iowa football, apparently.
You could see Illinois maybe sneak up in there.
That's,
the Bielemas, the Fighting Bielemas.
Yeah, they've
a great villain. Love to hate Bielema.
Listen, I'm just saying, Matt Rule coached a good game. You could see Nebraska maybe squeak it. I don't know. Nebraska could finish strong.
I don't know.
Yeah, man, y'all are sleeping on the one on my surprise end team. My surprise end team is Indiana.
Oh.
I could see Indiana running the table minus a loss at Ohio State, and if it's a close loss at Ohio State, I think they're still in. They've got Nebraska, Washington, Michigan State, Michigan, Purdue, and they've got the second to last game on that is Ohio State at Ohio State. I could see Indiana losing one game, and it's just to Ohio State.
Well, you won't see Penn State and Indiana get in.
Yes, I agree with that.
You think how many Big Ten teams do you think will get 3? 2?
Maybe
max 3.
Max 3. I agree.
Max 3.
Right,
yeah.
But so if Penn State were to stub their toe along the way, that's why this is like surprise stuff. This is like some stuff has to happen, right? So Penn State stubs their toe along the way. They only have one loss, and I don't know how it ends up working out as to who gets into the Big Ten championship. If you got Indiana with one loss to Ohio State and Penn State has a loss to who knows who later on in the season, which one of them gets into the Big Ten championship with, I'm assuming would be Oregon, because unless Oregon falls flat on their face, because I think they're better than everybody else in the Big Ten besides you guys. Do they play Penn State?
Could lose to Wisconsin. Penn State could lose to Maryland, who's always sneaky. Mm-hmm. Penn State could lose to Washington.
College Park, sneaky place. Whenever the students actually want to show up, whenever the students want to show up to those games, College Park, sneaky place for Penn State and for anybody else. I mean, they almost bit Michigan in the ass last year.
Yep.
College.
Yeah. So I don't remember. Who else does Oregon have?
I was trying to pull up Oregon's schedule.
They have Illinois, Purdue tomorrow, and then
Purdue, Illinois, Michigan, Maryland, Wisconsin, Washington.
Yeah, they've got nothing. So like Penn State and Oregon are going to play each other in the Big Ten championship. And so if Penn State somehow stubs their toe before that matchup and then loses to Oregon in the Big Ten championship, a one-loss Indiana gets in over Penn State. That's what I'm saying. Like I can see that.
I mean, you could be right.
Indiana's my sneaky surprise team to get into the college football playoff.
Jeremiah,
I think Clemson or Notre Dame is not going to make it. One of those two.
I think at this
those
point,
were going to be my two as well.
From staying out of the Big Ten championship and just kind of coasting their way, like not coast, but I think they might just benefit from just kind of chilling, laying back, and just winning out and seeing what happens.
Right.
I mean, and just kind of staying away from the Big Ten title game. I mean, if they end up in it, they got to win it, and if not, I think they're out. But Indiana, what do you think? And you think Indiana has what? I mean, they're 6-0 for a reason, or they not played anybody? Jeremiah, what do we think?
No,
I don't believe in it.
I don't believe it in
I don't
Indiana.
necessarily believe it either. I just look at their schedule and I'm like, show me who's gonna be like a. This is again,
That'll be if Indiana gets in, that'll be the team you see lose 49.
First, I agree.
Yes.
That's the Cincinnati of the situation. The Cincinnati,
yes.
Yeah.
You know,
I do have to ask because I know the Big 12 is kind of like a little stepbrother of the bigger conference, two bigger conferences.
They've got some squads.
You have BYU, Iowa State, and Texas Tech 3-0 in the conference. And BYU and Iowa State are both 6-0 overall.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, and then you have Arizona State, who's 2-1, Kansas State and Colorado, and then Cincinnati and West Virginia at 2-1 in the conference. So they may cannibalize each other where they all kind of beat each other up. How many of those? I think one gets in.
Two max. Two at the
two max.
No, they're not getting two.
Most.
I don't think they're getting two in.
No, I don't think they do, but I'm saying if it's two at the most Hail Mary of most.
Yeah, for sure.
One
so
is
my surprise team in that conference is Utah.
They're
1-2 and 4-2 overall. I think they're in trouble. I don't think they get in at all.
Yeah, they're beyond in trouble. They're and to the extent that they had a chance, it went by the wayside.
Went away.
When Cam Rising got his 8th year of eligibility granted.
Dude, he's
the Jim Belushi of college football players. He's going into his 100th season next year.
You're younger than me. He's a year younger than
good Lord. I mean, there should be a law against 40-year-olds playing in.
That's embedded once the national championship. You just be quiet over there.
I remember Chris Winkie, and you remember Josh Booty too. Like, how old was Josh Booty?
Elder rights.
You leave him alone.
That's right. Oh shoot. Well, that's awesome. Well, I did such a horrible job of promoting this. I didn't tell anybody to like, to share, to subscribe at the beginning of the show. So if you lasted this long, we appreciate you coming on. Hopefully we entertained you very effectively. And we appreciate everybody coming through. Tracy and Jeremiah, tell everybody, Tracy, you first, where everybody can find you so they can go and give you a follow.
Because I forget what my handle is.
Well,
It should
put
be
it all in the description too. So, so we'll have
it's
that.
at TC Gold Rush.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, one day we're going to have to talk about how you became a 49ers fan living in LSU country.
Orleans,
that's another story for another day. Yeah. Not just LSU country, but in the Saints' backyard. And somehow you became a team of my mortal enemy, the San Francisco 49ers and Joe Montana. We're just going to have to fight at some point one day. And Jeremiah, where can everybody find you?
You can find me on YouTube, Rumble, X, all social media at Jesus and Liberty, where you'll usually see me talking religion and politics. So it's good to branch out with you guys and talk about something a little more lightened.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you'll find Tracy talking about politics sometimes too. On when she's not crapping on Lane Kiffin, it's Kamala Harris that's in the crosshairs. And
I did have Coach O block me. Coach O was following me and he blocked me.
Unbelievable.
Hey,
that's another story I got to get into later about Coach O. Okay,
they just sent out the little notifications now. I don't know if you've seen it yet, but like when you pull up something on Twitter where like now people that you block can see your stuff anyway.
Oh, I'm still gonna troll his ass.
So like you can still go after them. You can't engage anymore or whatever.
Yes.
So it's just it's funny. But yeah, so the whole thing of like blocking people so they can't see your stuff is that's over. It was fun while it lasted. Well, we appreciate y'all coming through and joining us today. It was very fun. Had a lot of fun, very entertaining, and hope to have you guys back again at some point. And we appreciate everybody for coming through and watching. And again, don't forget to like, to share, and to subscribe, and spread this. Tell all your SEC fans and even your Big Ten fans that this is the place to be. We're mostly gonna talk about how the SEC is just the greatest conference to ever exist.
It just means more, baby.
Yeah, but we will also like give some, hey, Big Ten, you're second. Good job, guys. And
You still have the most money.
If you're not first, you're last, baby.
well, I don't know. Like you might have the most money when you have 18 teams. Tracy, I have this thing I say, like in the Midwest, they count like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, because it's the Big Ten, no matter how many teams they add. But when you have 18 teams, what's the dollar figure per team, and can you still rival Texas A&M's $380 million or whatever that they have for their buying players scheme? Like it is wild. And then we got Vanderbilt. Look, man, we got a lot of lawyers and doctors coming out of Vanderbilt. So I don't know. We may, if Vanderbilt keeps on this trajectory, some money might start flowing into the football program at Vanderbilt, and then watch the hell out, because they've got plenty to throw around. But no, we appreciate everybody coming through. Looking forward to a big week 8 in the SEC. And as always, we thank you for coming to the South End Zone. For Tracy, for Jeremiah, and for Tyler, I'm Chad. We're out of here. Peace, y'all.